I can't even pretend anymore. Before I talk to anyone, I need my first cup of coffee. This is my reset button. My self-care ritual. Dark, aromatic, comforting, maybe even an essential. And I know I'm not alone. I know you had a cup of coffee before you showed up for work today. What I just found out though is that this small comfort that all of us love so much is intricately tied in with climate change. Coffee is rapidly becoming one of the most fragile crops in the world.
Coffee.
The coffee bean.
Coffee.
Coffee is facing an existential threat.
Rising temperatures.
A drought
Excessive rainfall and
has put your cup of coffee in danger.
Arabica and Robusta, the world's two main beans, have more than doubled in price over the last couple of years. And if you're a home coffee drinker in Bengaluru, Delhi, or Mumbai and like buying your specialty coffee beans, you've probably already felt it. So what is behind this? Our old nemesis, climate change, the droughts in Vietnam, the heat waves, floods, and droughts in Brazil. They are not random. They are the warning signs. I am your host Lavanya, and in this episode of The Climate Brief, we are doing a deep dive into the coffee crisis and finding out what happens when a multi-billion global industry built on a climate-sensitive crop faces a warming planet. Stick around, because by the end of this video, we'll show you how your cup might be fueling the climate crisis too. Over the last 4 years, Arabica and Robusta prices have more than doubled. Arabica, the smooth, high-grade bean in your lattes, has gone from around $3 per kilo to $7.5 per kilo. Robusta, the bitter, harder bean used in instant coffee and blends, has jumped from $1.5 per kilo to nearly $5 per kilo. But the real shock came last year. In 2024 alone, world coffee prices surged by 40%. Zoom into December 24, Arabica was selling 58% higher than the year before. Robusta, a massive 70% surge in real terms. Even your regular supermarket blend, up about 15 to 30% in just the last year. Now let's talk about why your coffee costs more. It's not just demand, it's not just inflation, it is the weather. Across the world's biggest coffee belts, droughts, heat waves, and unseasonal rains are wrecking harvests. Here is why coffee is uniquely vulnerable to climate change. Coffee needs a very specific climate to grow. It needs temperatures between 23 degrees Celsius and 28 degrees Celsius and rainfall between 150 to 200 centimeters a year. Too little, the plant dries out. Too much, the berries fall off. And it's not just how much it rains, it's when. There's something called a blossom shower, a perfectly timed rain that triggers flowering. 2 to 3 weeks later, it needs a backing shower for the fruit to set. If the rain is late, no flowers, no berries, no beans. If it rains during the harvest season, the berries fall off before they are fully ripe. And what's climate change doing? It's breaking that balance. Temperatures are rising, so places that once grew coffee perfectly are now too hot to handle. Heat waves push the mercury beyond what the plants can tolerate. Droughts are intensifying. Many regions aren't hitting that 150 to 200 centimeter rainfall target anymore. And even when it does rain, it rains at the wrong time. Flowering happens, but without the crucial backing shower, not enough berries form. Or they form too late, or fall too soon. Take Vietnam, the world's top Robusta producer. In 2024, a second consecutive year of brutal drought hit the central highlands during the flowering phase. The trees didn't get the rain they needed to bloom. The flowers didn't turn to fruit. The result? A harvest so thin, some trees only bore cherries on their lowest branches. Add to that scorching heat that burned leaves right off the plants, and you get the worst kind of domino effect. Less flowering, less fruit, more defoliation, and now fewer beans. The 2024 to 25 harvest is expected to fall to just 22 million bags, a 10% drop from last year, and even last year was below average. Meanwhile, in Brazil, the world's biggest coffee producer, The story is no better. 2024 brought the driest flowering season since 1981 in key growing zones. Brazil's national supply company, CONAB, projects a 12.4% decline in Arabica output, down to 34.7 million bags for 2025 to 26, citing drought and the biennial low yield cycle as key factors. This isn't a one-off bad season, this is a pattern. Climate models are now showing that the very regions where coffee has grown for centuries may no longer stay viable by 2050. And if you think this is just a Brazil and Vietnam problem, think again. In the forests of Wayanad, Kerala, in the highlands of Karnataka, Indian coffee farmers are already feeling the heat. The rains that came like clockwork are not following the schedule anymore, and the harvests are becoming difficult to hold on to. Before we talk about the crisis, let's take a little history trip. Yemen should have a special place in every Indian coffee lover's heart because, as legend goes, all Indian coffee cultivation began with a Sufi saint named Baba Budan. On his return from Hajj in the 17th century, he stopped in Yemen's port city of Mocha, where coffee was guarded like gold. He smuggled back 7 coffee beans under his robe, risking death, and planted them in the hills of Chikmagalur. That single act, it birthed India's entire coffee ecosystem. Even though the country isn't one of the biggest coffee growers in the world, it's one of the most unique. Unlike Brazil or Vietnam, where coffee grows in sun-drenched monocultures, India's coffee comes from shaded, biodiverse plantations tucked deep in the western and eastern Ghats. A mix of cardamom vines, pepper creepers, fruit trees, and timber make up the coffee plantations. These aren't just coffee farms, they are micro ecosystems, and they have stood strong for generations. This is some of the most sustainable coffee in the world. No clear cutting, no monoculture, just rich and biodiverse ecosystems managed by farming families for generations. Coffee in India depends on rhythm. The blossom shower in March triggers flowering. The backing shower 2 weeks later sets the fruit. Today, the regions that once flourished with coffee, Karnataka, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, are grappling with the harsh realities of climate change. In Karnataka, which contributes over 70% of India's coffee, areas like Chikmagalur and Kodagu are witnessing erratic rainfall patterns. The once predictable monsoons have become inconsistent, affecting both the flowering and fruit-setting stages of the coffee plants. 2024 was brutal. The April blossom showers, the ones that trigger flowering, just didn't come in time. And when the rains did arrive, they came all at once. Too little, too late. The result? Not enough buds. And then, too much rain. Crops started rotting in the soil. Many farmers couldn't even finish fertilizing before the next downpour hit. In some areas, 30% of the crop was lost. That's not a bad season. That is a crisis. In Wayanad, Kerala, the farmers say that the once cool and steady climate is now hotter and more erratic. A 2024 UNDP report shows the temperatures crossing 30 degrees Celsius by March, where it used to be around 25 degrees Celsius. That shift alone has triggered a 40% drop in coffee production since 2017. In Tamil Nadu, regions such as the Nilgiris are experiencing higher minimum temperature during the summer months. This, combined with poor rainfall distribution, has led to a 25% decline in coffee production, prompting some farmers to abandon their fields. Farmers are also battling unseasonal rain right in the middle of harvest season. Between November and Jan, it's usually dry. That's when hand picking and sun drying happen. Two things India's coffee is known for. But in recent years, the rains just haven't stopped. That delays harvests. It ruins drying. And worse, it can confuse the plants, triggering early blossoms before the soil is ready. One season gets wrecked, and the next one starts broken. Across these states, the challenges are compounded by the rise of pests like the white stem borer. These pests thrive in warmer conditions. This beetle bores into the stem, cutting off nutrients and killing the plant from the inside. And when it emerges in high numbers, entire estates are wiped out. Climate models don't just warn us about shrinking coffee zones. They redraw the map entirely. Areas that once grew Arabica perfectly may become too hot, too erratic to sustain the crop. And the few regions that are still suitable, they are often at higher altitudes, deep in ecologically sensitive forests. Which brings us to a tough choice. Do we expand into forest land? Or do we reinvent how we grow? Here's the twist no one tells you. While climate change is hitting coffee hard, coffee production has also been one of the drivers of long-term climate change. The world's favorite drink has its own environmental footprint, and chances are you have never heard about it. Let's start with the big one, deforestation. In parts of Brazil where coffee has been grown since the 1800s, vast stretches of the rainforest were cleared to make room for coffee plantations. The same story plays out in Vietnam, Indonesia, and Colombia, regions where coffee farms often replace forests tree by tree. Why? Because of something called sun-grown coffee. Sun-grown coffee plants are bred to yield more, almost 3 times as much as traditional shade-grown coffee. But to maximize that yield, you need open land. No canopy, no trees, just rows and rows of monocultured plants. That means clear-cutting forests, bulldozing biodiversity. It makes the land easier to farm, easier to mechanize. But it comes at a cost. When you clear a forest, you don't just remove trees. You destroy wildlife habitats. You release the carbon stored in soil and biomass. And you lose the natural protection that those trees offer against heat, pests, and soil erosion. So, can we grow coffee without growing the crisis? The answer is yes. There are ways to grow coffee that protect the planet and make coffee farming more resilient. The first, agroforestry. Growing coffee under the shade of trees, not just one species, but diverse, multi-layered canopies that restore soil health, lock carbon, and protect biodiversity. Secondly, climate-resilient coffee varieties. Plants that can handle hotter days, unpredictable rains, and still bear fruit. Third, smarter water use, rainwater harvesting, efficient drip irrigation, less reliance on sprinklers and diesel pumps. Fourth, organic farming and smarter inputs. Fewer chemicals, more natural cycles. Reducing nitrogen-based fertilizers also means fewer emissions of nitrous oxide, a greenhouse gas nearly 300 times more potent than carbon dioxide. And last, and maybe the most important piece, fair prices for farmers, especially the ones with small farm holdings, because adapting to climate change costs money, whether it's replanting trees, switching to new methods, or meeting tough export rules, like the EU's deforestation regulation of 2023 or EUDR. Under this law, Europe won't buy products like coffee if they are linked to deforestation after 2020. Every batch has to be traceable, right down to the exact plot of land where it was grown. Without fair pay, there's no room for change. So the next time you sip your coffee, ask where it came from. Was it grown under trees or at the cost of them? Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about the price of your morning coffee in rupees. It's about the real cost of every cup. Who pays it? And whether that cost is measured only in rupees or also in forests, biodiversity, carbon, and livelihoods. If the story surprised you or changed how you see your daily cup, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to know what's brewing behind the scenes. And in the comments, tell us, how much is too much for a cup of coffee? We will see you next time.